And if you can remember what happened back in March 2020, actually markets did almost a V, shaped rebound, and I completely missed the rally. So for me, it's starting early, benefit from compounding, and try and invest for the long term, take emotions out of investing. As long as you choose a portfolio that is in line with your risk level, just don't think about it, don't touch it.
Amanda, thanks for being on Live Long and Prosper. It's finally great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, let's start with congratulating you. Congratulations on the Singapore CEO role. We both know you've been doing this for a while, but it's great to have the name reflected. So how does this feel and what does it mean about Arta and Singapore?
Well, first of all, it's incredibly humbling. I think for me, I really appreciate the trust and the belief that yourself, the founders, and the rest of the leadership team have placed in me to hopefully lead us to our next stage of growth. As you know, Singapore is our global wealth hub. From a strategic standpoint, it is one of our two main headquarters, is incredibly important to us. And so this really shows that we are wanting to get deeper within the market. And we also see the fact that a lot of more people will be booking their wealth through Singapore, and we want to try and enhance that even more.
Yeah, it's been very exciting seeing the growth in Singapore over the last 3 or 4 months. So we're hoping it gets even faster now.
Yes.
Okay, great. From Arta and Singapore, I want to talk a little bit about your previous career. I mean, you've had such an amazing career. If one were to design a career in wealth tech, they could probably not do as well as you've done. You've gone from traditional wealth at very large scales to leading some incredible digital platforms, and now, of course, Singapore for Arta. What has inspired you to pursue this path, and how did you get into it? And can you talk a little bit about your journey?
Well, I've been very lucky with the opportunities I've been given. I think how it all started out was, so weirdly, when I was 14, 15 years old, I'm not sure I think we've briefly talked about this, but I used to play golf competitively. I moved to the US when I was 14 to pursue golf full time, like half day in school, half playing golf. And the flights to New York were like 18 hours, right? And when it's that long, you eventually run out of movies to watch, and you start asking for, can I have some magazines? Can I have some newspapers to have a look at? Started looking at the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, and reading these articles that, you see how interconnected the world of finance is, right? Something that can happen in one country, a natural disaster, has an impact on the price of gold or price of a mineral, right? The fact that everything is correlated was very intriguing for me, and that's what sparked my initial interest to pursue finance in university. And I think when I got into uni, I started thinking about how I wanted to chart my career going forward. And for me, I felt like it was very important to set a foundation working for a large institution first, so that I had all of the, the main tools and the skills around stakeholder management that would be beneficial for me going forward. And I also wanted to benefit from, working for a large brand. So I, went into Citi for an internship, continued with them full-time once I graduated. But the end goal was always to join a smaller company, because I believed that would allow me to scale my skills exponentially. When you work for a startup, you're not just taking on one role, but you start wearing multiple hats. And it gives you an opportunity to learn a lot more. And so, after I was with Citi, I decided to take the plunge to join a startup, which at that point in time was Stashaway. And yeah, the rest is history.
How was the change from traditional finance to large institution to wealth tech and startup?
So the one thing I felt with working at large institutions is that your progress within the organization tends to be very staged, right? You go in at an analyst level, you stay 2 to 3 years, then you move to an associate. And you typically focus very much on one role and one scope of work. And for me personally, I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't feel like it gave me the level of intensity that I craved. And don't get me wrong, I think there are a lot of people that enjoy that, and it's just not for me. I really do enjoy multitasking and working on completely different projects, multiple projects at a time. And I felt that was what I got with a startup. The fact that you can come in and actually work at, when I joined one of my companies, I joined leading the client experience team, and ended up taking on multiple roles like leading financial education, PR, which I've not done previously. So the opportunity to do that, you would not be able to do in a traditional large institution.
That is absolutely true. You talked about your passion for democratizing wealth, right, and making it more accessible to many people. I mean, that's the core of what we're doing at Arta. What in your life spurred that passion? Like, what got you into that? What got you thinking about it? And what sort of motivates you?
So when I was working at a bank and I moved to a multi-family office, I think one thing that I saw was a lot of large institutions and a lot of ultra high net worths getting access to products that I couldn't get access to, right? It's the same problem that you mentioned and the team mentioned, which was what spurred the kind of founding of Arta. And I saw that same thing, which is, they were able to access a very sophisticated private equity, private credit opportunities. They were able to invest in structured products. They were aiming for double-digit returns that, for a lot of retail investors, you might not be able to ever see. And so for me, that was the first kind of click where I was like, hey, this needs to be brought to a lot more people, right? This advantage that the ultra wealthy have is not fair if it's not given to everyone else. And so, that's kind of what spurred me to join a lot of the more wealth tech focused platforms that allow you to do that, democratize wealth management for everyone.
I think it's a fantastic cause, as we both share. How's thinking about this whole space that influenced your own personal investing and your own views on personal finance?
Well, I made the mistake early on in my career of not starting to invest early enough. So when I first joined a bank, so for those folks that actually work at banks or investment firms, you actually have to declare every single trade that you make. And that becomes a little bit of a hassle, and it kind of deters you from wanting to invest yourself because you have to fill out multiple forms. It's a little bit of a hassle. So for me, for my first couple of years when I was in the workforce, I didn't invest at all. I was just putting cash in the bank. And I actually pretty much missed, so post the global financial crisis in '08, we saw the longest bull run. 10 years, right? And I missed a good chunk of that because I was just, in a way, kind of complacent. And so that's something that I deeply regret now. And hopefully, I want to try and make sure that other people are not making the same mistakes I did and don't regret the same way I did.
Yeah, especially given the sort of lows we are down through and the high uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll come back to another of those 10-year long periods. You've now gotten into finance in wealth in a deep way. We've talked about different asset classes, and you mentioned bringing access to them. Is there like one financial opportunity or strategy that you particularly feel passionate about, that if it could be made accessible to everyone, it would be transformative for a very large part of society?
So I think for me, I've previously worked at a lot of firms that did not offer as in-depth or as sophisticated a private market funds that we have at Arta. And to be honest, it was actually a learning opportunity for me when I first came into Arta to see the level of access that we could get for our clients. And so that was something that, if I was able to kind of step back 5 years, I wish I had these same opportunities for myself, right? Being able to start with 25K into a private equity fund, you wouldn't see this anywhere else. Yeah. And the great thing about private markets is that it doesn't move as in line with how public markets do, right? So you are, especially in the current environment where there is a lot of uncertainty and things change day to day with the public markets, you can see the advantages of going into private market opportunities. And so for me, that's something that I think I wish I had gotten access to earlier. But the great thing is that we're now making that available for more people.
Yeah, and it's super exciting how the democratization of private equity is happening, and hopefully over the next 5 years, many more people across the world will get it.
Yeah.
That's how the institutionals, the family offices, and all endowments really have created much better financial outcomes for themselves.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of financial advice you would give yourself?
It would be, back to basics. Start early, compound, right? Don't react to markets. And sometimes it's even though I do this for a living, sometimes it's difficult to listen to that advice as well. And I'll give you an example. So back in March of 2020, I remember that I just got my bonus. Mm-hmm. And at that point in time, it was before the whole kind of COVID news was widespread and everyone was in a panic mode. And I actually took my entire bonus and invested it right away. And within a couple of weeks, markets crashed. My portfolio was down kind of 10, 20%. And I had this, irrational behavior of actually selling and withdrawing. And if you can remember what happened back in March 2020, actually markets did almost a V-shaped rebound, and I completely missed the rally. So for me, it's starting early, benefit from compounding, and try and invest for the long term, take emotions out of investing. As long as you choose a portfolio that is in line with your risk level, just don't think about it, don't touch it.
Yeah. Get it going and then forget about it. That's great advice. So let's switch a little bit from overall your personal wealth, your approach to wealth management to just generally the industry. How do you see, the wealth management industry changing over the next 5 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been very lucky to have worked across traditional and digital. And when I actually joined one of the first robo-advisors in Singapore. And at that point in time, it is, what I call today fintech 1.0, right? Where a lot of robo-advisors were coming to the market and taking financial services that were traditionally only available in brick-and-mortar stores and now making them digital. And the great thing that we see today, right now, with what we're doing at Arta is actually taking that one step further, or what we call fintech 2.0, right? Actually leveraging AI to drive not just back-end processes or support conversations with clients, but actually use it in investment decision making and in how we engage clients. I think going forward, what we'll see is a lot more partnerships happen. So taking a lot of what these fintech 2.0 companies are innovating, and banks are seeing that it's going to be they probably are seeing that it's going to be potentially difficult for them to replicate the same thing themselves, and wanting to partner with firms that have already succeeded in doing it. So I think a lot more partnerships will start to form. This is something that 5-10 years ago people were talking about how the incumbents and the fintechs are competitors, but going forward, I think we'll see a lot more partnerships happen, and them benefiting from what they both bring.
And you've definitely helped us build that business over the last few months with many banks and financial institutions across who are leveraging Arta's APIs and technologies and asset management capabilities.
Yeah, I think it's been incredible, the level of conversations that we've been having. One thing that initially surprised me when we were thinking about the B2B business was some private banks or banks potentially thinking of us as competitors, but as we now know, a lot of them have seen value in the fact that we can come together, and instead of competing, let's work together and take what Arta has and make that available to even their clients, right? Yeah. So I think that's been, very incredible.
It's been very exciting. It's also been exciting to see some consumer banks decide to go into wealth and then be able to leverage, wealth as a platform, wealth as a service platform to be able to get in very well. I mean, that's been one of the deals we worked on for a while.
Yeah, I think the great thing about these partnerships is that it's how we are potentially able to scale, right? We have licenses in the US and in Singapore, but beyond that, if you want to take what we have and make that available to a lot more people, we can't do it alone, right? We always talk about this, and partnerships is a great way for us to do that. A lot of these banks have, the trust in a particular market and strong distribution channels. Or any firm to go into a new market and start from ground zero, it's going to be very difficult, especially when you're trying to get people to invest their life savings with you. And the great thing with these partnerships is that we get to benefit from the best of both worlds, right? We bring what we have, which is the best of AI and the best of tech, and the banks bring distribution channels and the client base that they've built over the past, hundreds of years.
Absolutely. It'll be very exciting. Are there any major trends you see in wealth management that you think will shape the industry over the next few years?
So first of all, I think AI is definitely here to stay. That's something that I think everyone agrees on. The one thing that I see a lot of banks potentially struggling with is kind of how do you make this available to end clients in a highly regulated environment. We've started testing, Arta has started testing this out, at least in Singapore. We work very closely with the MES. We're very lucky to have such a supportive regulator who is very encouraging about the use of AI within the industry and make the rules very clear about how you stay within the confines of the regulation. So we are working very closely with them in kind of making that available to our end clients, and I think we can bring this to help the banks as well. Yeah.
This is profound. It could potentially also position Singapore as a center for AI in wealth and finance, right? So just, I think at a global scale, truly, truly exciting. So now that we've started talking about Singapore, How do you see the wealth industry in Singapore evolving over the next few years?
So I think Singapore is at the forefront when it comes to tech and wealth management, right? It really brings the best of both worlds together. If you look at kind of Singapore as a wealth hub, first of all, the foreign inflows into Singapore is 3 times that the local inflows. People across the region are already booking their wealth here in Singapore. If you take that level of trust that regional investors have in the country as an investment hub and bring that alongside the fact that it is trying to push the use of technology and the use of AI to enhance the way wealth management is provided, I think it's kind of going to hopefully make Singapore the #1 wealth hub in the world.
Yeah, we hope so, definitely. We're investing a lot in that, so we'll see. You've worked in Singapore, you've worked with Singapore partners, you've also worked with international partners, you're working all the way across the world. Do you see Singapore and Singaporeans invest differently from the rest of the world?
So first of all, we only serve accredited investors, but if you look more broadly in the Singapore population, Singapore is generally a very cash-heavy society. So if you look at the stats, right, about 45% or 39% of financial wealth in Singapore is held in cash. That same number in North America is at 13%. So we are a lot less invested as a country. So there's a lot more kind of financial education that's required to help people understand that cash in the bank is, you're losing money every year to inflation. And it is important for it to be put to work. So, I think we're spending a lot of time on helping to educate the general public. But when it comes to the specific segment of clients that we service, I think we're trying to take things one step further, right? Helping them not just invest their wealth, but actually do it the way a lot of professionals and institutions have been able to do it. So I think both these factors coming together is just going to enhance the industry and society and help Singapore in general even more.
That's we definitely hope so. So turning from Singapore and wealth, let's talk a little bit about you, the person. So you've had a phenomenal career, like as you're going and presumably have a much bigger career in the future too. What's sort of one of the biggest pieces of advice you would offer to someone who's looking at you and saying, I want to be where Amanda is in a few years in my life, in terms of career, in terms of how you've thought about your life?
So I think for me, usually what I kind of try and tell, people that are coming to or starting their journey in wealth management or, in their career, there are 2 key things I would say. The first one is the benefit of just kind of saying yes, right? So oftentimes people are, or women in general as well, are too afraid to take on challenges that they think that they might not be ready for, right? So if they're not meeting all of the criteria within a job, they're like, okay, maybe I won't apply for that. Or I won't put up my hand for that project because I don't think I'm qualified enough. As I mentioned earlier, I've done a lot of things that I've never done before. And, I've benefited from just kind of throwing myself in the deep end and just taking on that challenge and figuring it out once I get there. I think that's the only way that you grow. So kind of being open to saying yes more often instead of no. And the second thing is the power of networking, right? I think oftentimes people, join companies, especially large companies, and they might kind of stay siloed within their own department, their own teams. They go for lunch together. They don't try and get to know other people within the organization or other people outside within the industry. In general, I really enjoy meeting new people and also meeting people that could not, maybe at that point in time, there is nothing for us to potentially benefit from each other, but it's more so of just getting to know each other. I think at the end of the day, expanding your network in this way, you never know. 5-10 years, these same people that you meet right now could be, helping you in some way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask you about your background is there something about your career that you're very proud of that's not in your resume?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure if this is fully covered in my resume, so I'm going to say it. And it's definitely the kind of moment in my career that I'm most proud of until today, which is that I really enjoy building, and I really enjoy building teams in particular. So, I was at some point in time was given the opportunity to actually build a team from a team of 4 to a team of 48 across 5 countries. And a lot of the people that I was hiring were fresh out of university, a couple of years out of university. And at that point in time, you're really helping to shape their careers. And as you're building out such a large team as well, you're also in parallel thinking about how you structure that team in the right way, in a scalable way. And I think I felt very lucky to have an impact on the people that I was bringing onto the team and helping to shape their career journeys, but also given the opportunity to actually build such a large team across multiple countries. I think that was the most fulfilling time in my career. Yeah.
It's exciting to know. Hopefully, you'll get many more opportunities to build teams as the business grows here. Let's close off with maybe a quick lightning round of questions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell you a statement and then leave a blank.
Yeah.
Just say whatever comes to your mind. So if you want to prosper, never underestimate the power of
Compounding. I feel like you can probably get that a lot.
yeah, I actually don't. That's a great one.
Okay.
The 3 key ingredients for a long, fulfilling life are dash, dash, and dash.
Family, friends, and good wine.
Good wine. That's a great one. That's a new one. The simple joy that adds years to my life is?
Spending time with family.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being on Live Long and Prosper and for sharing so openly and generously.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me, Caesar.